Hi guys, welcome to the second session in this room today. It's all about talent development in the North. So we've got lots of industry organisations that have been collaborating recently, so they're going to talk about some insights and some updates and basically what they've been up to all surrounding talent development. I'll pass everything.
Thank you for that excellent introduction, Cara. I'm going to start with some introductions over here as well. Let's start from my left with Tony.
Do you want to say a few words? Or?
Who you are and what you do, please.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi everyone, my name is Tony Ereira. I run an organisation called Come Play With Me, which is based here in Leeds. If you can't find me, it's because my name's been misspelled up there. So we're a music development organisation here. We're probably best known as a label, an events promoter. We specifically work with underrepresented, marginalised groups in music.
Thank you, Tony. Yao.
My name is Owusu. I'm from an organisation called Nothing But The Music. So I'm a creative consultant, so I get to work with loads of organisations across the country. PRS Foundation, where I run Power Up. I'm working with Brighter Sounds, doing some work with Generator. But my whole thing is about talent development, both on stage and behind stage, really, and helping underserved communities tell stories through media as well.
Hi everyone, my name's Alice Fuller. My name is spelled correctly. I'm the Deputy CEO for Generator North East. We are a creative development agency based in Newcastle upon Tyne. We do a number of things. We're quite multifaceted, but predominantly we do artist development. So we're really looking at ensuring that there's a pathway for people from emerging to established and beyond. We also work a lot on the business side, like the advocating for the region and ensuring that there's investment coming from external partners and also within our region with local authorities and funders. Yeah, there you go.
Hi everyone, I'm Kate. I'm from Brighter Sound. We're a music development charity based.
I heard that you're like CEO or something of Brighter Sound.
Yeah. I'm not saying it because it's my first week and it doesn't. I thought it was. I've worked at Brighter Sound for a long time, but this is my first week as director for Brighter Sound. But I'm not confident saying it out loud.
Very well deserved.
Very well deserved.
Oh, you've thrown me off my patter. So Brighter Sound is a music development charity. We're based in Manchester and we work with artists from across the north and children and independents as well. So we do music projects with people working in music in lots of different ways. We're also the sector lead for Manchester Music City, which is what's the word? A collaboration of partners working in music across Manchester, promoters, venues, artists. And we're working together to develop a music strategy for the city and connecting to the international network of music cities as well.
Very impressive stuff, guys. I'm Sarah. I work at PPL, which is the UK's music licensing organisation for performers and record companies. So we do a lot of work at PPL with all of these organisations, and so yeah, we're very lucky to kind of know and understand, and it's part of my job to understand what each of these organisations do and how regional infrastructures are flourishing across the country. And so I think let's start off with just understanding who's in the room. Have we got any musicians or performers? Loads, oh my God. Any managers? No, or shy managers. Any record labels? Do you put music out? Yeah. Promoters working live music? Yeah, a few. Anything else that I haven't said? Okay, couple. Thank you. So also just wanted to quickly address the elephant in the room in that I have a southern accent and we're talking about northern talent development, and you might have noticed also Tony does not have a northern accent, so we are here as very much champions and admirers, although Tony lives here, I don't, of the northern music scene. So yeah, please please be kind to us. But yeah, let's start off. I think one of the things we really need to talk about actually is what is talent development. What does it mean? Who wants to start off? Kate.
No, I was just going to state you.
I think actually I'm not a massive fan of talent development as a phrase. I prefer either creative development or artistic development, and I think that's where, as an organisation, Brighter Sound that's where our practice is rooted really. So for us it's about supporting that creativity inside of people and supporting it through creating development opportunities, creating opportunities to collaborate, to work in different spaces, and creating, I think, the really important conditions of time, space and money to make really bold and exciting new work.
It's like you've said that before. That was...
Told you that why it was a good bet to go there.
Yeah, what's your opinion of talent development or artistic development?
Similar. You know what I get confused with sometimes? It's almost seen like some of the work that talent development organisations do is seen as being less important than like A&R process. And I actually think they're more closely entwined, and I think if any in the commercial sector could probably learn a lot from the organisations that do that groundwork that maybe they used to do. Do you know what I mean? So I see a massive gulf, but because I work on both sides, I work with artists who are signed, and I've had JVs, I've been a consultant at major labels, but I've also run talent development organisations and work with independent artists at the exact same time. I think there's more crossover, and there should be more of a transfer of knowledge, understanding, resource as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. You mean that people expect a finished product when they, yeah.
And technically, if they expect a finished product, they should invest in that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Alice, I feel like you were about to say something.
Well, I was going to sort of speak for the other side, I guess, of the developmental journey that artists go on, and that is the different pathways within the industry and how important it is to have a portfolio career nowadays. So I hugely admire what sort of aspects that you were talking about collaboration on the ground level, and I guess a lot of my experience and my background comes more from the working with other organisations and taking transferable skills back to my art or back to other people's art. So sort of learning about those pathways is the development that I really am passionate about and Generator's passionate about.
Thanks, Alice. Tony, we started talking about this earlier, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, Sarah. I think I agree with everything that my three colleagues have said. The only thing I was going to say, probably 80-90% of the people in the room said they were musicians. And I think the talent development or artist development process, to kind of personalise it for all of you, it can mean anything you want. I think anything that empowers you or enables you to get from where you are today to where you want to be. And I think we all do that in different ways. It means different things to different people, but it sounds woolly and fluffy, but it's that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's someone else taking a look at your career and just saying, how about trying this?
And obviously that's not just for music creators, is it?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And arguably, the further and further you come away from the capital, the more important it actually is that we develop in industry professionals as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And especially in certain genres and in certain underserved groups as well. It's like it becomes more important that there's people who look or act or make the music that you understand the music and music culture that you make are helping you.
I was going to add one more thing, and I stole this. Sarah told me you said this, so these are your words, I've stolen. I think a lot of the time, we'd all say a lot of the things we do are, if we can't help it, I can't answer that question, but why don't you go and speak to that person over there? I know a man who does, I know a woman who does.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. I was saying, when we caught up the other week, Yara was telling me about how much signposting he does, and how much it's your job to be connected to other people and helping people find those connections.
So you don't have the responsibility if it goes wrong, can you?
So part of the purpose of this panel is to talk about how these organisations and lots of other organisations across the North come together to be stronger. And so what is the Northern Partners Alliance? I'm going to go to Kate for this. And I called it an alliance, and it's not an alliance. I just made that up.
Well, it could be an alliance, and I think that's the really lovely thing about this session we're doing today, and hopefully some in the future, that we're really open to what it is, what it looks like, and how it operates. It's put these two words together, an initiative that is in its early stages, really. As you might have picked up, there's a number of organisations involved. We've all worked with each other in different ways in the past, and this is a sort of natural extension, I think, of some sort of different aspects of collaborations that we've gone on to sort of work more in a more joined up way across a broader area. So I think for us there's synergy in the way that we work, and the work that we do, the ethos and outlook that we have as organisations, and our commitment to supporting artists and independents in the region. So this is really about taking more of a strategic view to the way in which we do that, looking at how we can do more more together without the risk of sounding like a politician, how we can also create new opportunities, how we might encourage investment into the region, and how we can sort of play off each other's strengths and specialisms as well. We don't all need to do the same thing all the time. So sort of the future vision around it is really about how we can make this work more impactful and more sustainable.
Amazing. And who forms part of this? Yeah, do you want to tell us about who's in the group?
Everyone who's doing good work. No, I'm just going to go back to your point. You can actually name the organisations, but I think the why is so critical. I think we've all admired.
We're going to get to the why.
Each of
That's right.
I didn't read the questions. No, but I'll say that I think there's a mutual respect for a lot of the organisations and individuals in the room. So I think the first meeting we had, which was in Leeds, wasn't it? Coming into that room and you go and I've admired their work. Oh, we've done some work with them before. We're looking to do. I think that's because that it is a shared ethos and an energy and a vision of how northern cities and organisations, music organisations, can work better for artists and industry professionals and stuff like that. So I think that can't be overlooked. It's not being like a forced down, top down thing where someone said you should work together, and because we haven't got arts council do it all the time. Why don't you just talk? This has been a lot more of an organic respect thing, and then going, okay, well, how can we build it? And obviously all us the organisations we represent are involved, but there are some more actually.
I was going to say, before we get on, it's worth saying that it's thanks to this wonderfully humble lady here, Kate, and Mick, wherever he's over there. You've sort of pulled us all and corralled us all together, and I couldn't agree more with you, Albert. Well done for kicking it off.
It's only them two who get us all together, isn't it, really?
Go on, Kate. Do you want to tell us who?
I'm frightened that I'm going to miss someone out. So what I will say is that at the moment we've got representation from Liverpool, Manchester, Leeds, Newcastle, and Sheffield. We've also got some members who are in Hull, Doncaster, and Bradford. But this is just an initial steering group of people who were trying to sort of come up with a bit of a framework for us to develop and grow. So I think today is also about an invitation for other organisations or people working in different areas to get in touch, because we're really keen for this to be an open group. And we're also really interested, we're mindful that we're all sort of city-based, and we're really aware of gaps between towns and cities as well, so that's something we sort of actively want to look at in the way that we're structured.
Yeah, and as well as being across lots of different towns and cities, you're all working in different genres and different types of music, and would you say different career levels as well in terms of that artist development journey? Yeah. Now, let's go back to the why a little bit. Why is this necessary? Why is it important that you guys are coming together, Tony?
I think, like Sarah said before, I sometimes feel like I'm the token southerner in this group, and I moved to Leeds or Yorkshire about 10, 12 years ago, and it really shocked me how I'm used to being in London. It's easy. You want to speak to somebody, well, even if they're a mile or two away, you jump on the tube, you're there in 2 minutes, and we all know that's not the reality. And I think first of all, I really admire all of the people that have been spoken about here and all the organisations. But I think the why is really, to me, there's a shared set of challenges. I mean, transport's the obvious one. I mean, it's a bit of a joke, isn't it, that we're sitting here today and a lot of people couldn't get here because there were no trains running from large parts of the country. But more positively, I think there's so many examples of really good practice, and I look at the people here, but it's not just the people here, it's the wider group and the other organisations, as Kate mentioned, that we want to bring into this. There's so much good stuff going on here that we can all learn from. I guess there's an opportunity there. And I guess also, touching on the London thing, and close your ears for this bit, Sarah, I want us to be a bit of a counterweight for London and the South East. I think all of the organisations involved here have done so much we're almost all organisations that have never had loads and loads and loads of money. We're all used to eking things out on a shoestring. And it's sort of, to me, we've done so much individually as organisations, it almost scares me to think what we can do if we can work together. And as Kate said, we've all worked together informally, but if we really pool our resources, I feel like I'm becoming a politician now, this thing could be really powerful.
Bigger, better, stronger.
Well, that's the idea, I suppose, isn't it? But I think touching on the kind of not having any money, I think, yeah, that's a critical thing. But then I suppose equally, that's the artist's journey, isn't it? About finding streams of income and support from across, which you guys signpost as well. And yeah, how did this come up now? Did these conversations start was there a particular catalyst when you started talking about it?
It feels like we've been having conversations for a really long time, but I think we've sort of moved forward in earnest sort of after the pandemic, really, when we went from being quite sort of siloed in the way we worked during that period where we weren't getting out and meeting other people, to sort of coming out of that and thinking how great it is to work with, other organisations and working in different areas as well.
Nice wrong question.
Yeah.
Did a lot of the strategic moves by the likes of the BBC and obviously EMI and stuff to say, look, we want to do stuff outside, did that supercharge the conversation? Because I feel like I did come in a stage later in terms of, did that kind of, you've probably seen that in Manchester, Kate, I say like when BBC moved to Salford, did that supercharge conversations that were already happening, but it felt like it was actually a little bit more immediate?
Well, I'm just thinking back to that piece of research that Generator did with Help Musicians, that's what they call it, Help Musicians UK, that was a bit of they carried out a really good piece of research across different areas in the region to look at what those sort of commonalities were in terms of where investment was needed, where change needed to happen, where there were gaps in terms of provision. And I think that was probably the catalyst, because once that sort of initial report was pulled together, we had a bit of a round table to look at it, and then that was something that we sort of said, we need to work on this a little bit more together. But that was just before we sort of went into lockdown, wasn't it? So then we did the opposite of that, and then we're like, oh yeah, that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess that naturally when people are coming out of the pandemic, that's when you are most reflective and having time to kind of think about what's important and not just keeping going. And I think, yeah, let's move on to the goals and some of the kind of.
I was going to say, sorry Sarah, just backing up a bit. If you don't mind me saying, I feel like I'm going to sound like a really sycophantic twat in saying this, but I think from my organisation's perspective, there's a lot of time when I kind of feel like we know what we're doing, we're operating in a space, we know we're doing things really, really well, but there's times when I need a bit of help, I need a bit of support. So it's happened many times. I'll get on the phone with Kate, I'll get on the phone with Mick, I'll speak to Whiskers, and there's lots of really good information shared. So I think there's also, in amongst the why, it's because it's a collective, we're almost like a support network, right? Sorry, Sarah.
No, not at all. That's very
And
yeah.
and I do think there's some bigger challenges that I don't think there'll be real impact if everyone just does it on their own. I think there'll be like incremental bits, which are always great, but I think when we look at some larger areas, for instance, if we're looking at live music venues and stuff like that, I think a number of venues moving together, I mean, a number of organisations moving together in a strategic way can make a massive change.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a logic to it as well. You know?
Can I also just mention that I am also a southerner? Sorry, had to put that out there. But one of the things that was always huge for me working in music in London was never did I, this is awful to say, but never did I want to go north. I always wanted to stay in and around London because to a lot of southerners, that's where you want to be. There aren't any opportunities up north. So actually moving up north, struggling myself at that time, like 10 years ago, to find a job in the music industry, only encouraged me more to fight for opportunities in the north. So being able to kind of, so I've only been with Generator for the last year, but to come into an organisation that's already in a joined up approach with other northern spearheading organisations was a really welcome thing to come into, and I think is something that the South doesn't have. And so this northern pride that everybody in the north has is something really strong that we should really hold on to and work together more, and then the South will be looking towards us.
But talking about Generator though, the model is quite interesting because it is working together across northern organisations, but there's also very strong links to London-based industry leading organisations, and I think that's what we're trying to. We're not like banging the drum for the north and like it's going to be like and here's the north, because I think that we're doing it injustice to the artists and the talent that's coming through, because it'd be like fundamentally we all want to have sustained careers, so what we all want to do is break bread over common things that make sense. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to, so I think that's important to notice. Like, if this is like a Northern Alliance, or I don't know what the phrase is, it's going to be about utilising all contacts and all pathways and working. Do you know what I mean? Not necessarily just thinking we're just going to work in a silo up here. That's what we're actually trying to avoid doing.
Yeah. So to actually break down that divide between the north and the south.
Yeah.
No,
not at all.
Back to you, Chair.
I think it's a wonderful thing though, and I think, again, kind of going back to kind of post-pandemic mentality, it just being important to not be focused on London and people wanting to be nearer their homes and having a balance and being somewhere that they wanted to be. And I think ideally we want to move to a place where it's completely unnecessary to be in London. She says, living in London, but yeah, it'd be nice to
But
get to that point.
But even when you think about people living or being able to stay in the place where they were born and find to meet their ambition as a music industry artist, industry professional, where they're from, where they're based. Little things like going down the road and knowing that your friends are there, you can catch up. You've got your friends, you're from there, or your parents or parents or whatever. Those things. When we talk about well-being and all that, it's like the fact that for so long individuals from all these cities up north done really good, and they get to a point where then they've got to leave to further their career. So when they leave, they're leaving their family, they're leaving their friends, they're leaving all that support network that keeps you grounded and level-headed. They leave that to go away and have to essentially start again. And those people do well, but loads of people still feel imposter 25 years later. Do you know what I mean? So that's an issue. And then obviously when those people go, again, getting to the top of the tree in their city and they're so influential, when they have to leave, whether it's artist or industry professional, there's a massive gap. Sometimes it takes 10 years for that gap, that space to be replenished. And like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, how far is London from here? What, 500, is it even 500 miles? Like, it doesn't make sense. If this was in America, people think we're nuts. It's not far, but we have this thing. And I think it's not one of our main goals, but definitely one of our soft outcomes is that people should feel like they don't have to leave their northern cities to have a career in the music industry.
Excellent segue there, Jan.
Over to Kate.
Who wants to talk about short-term goals? Alice, do you want to talk us through?
So I was trying to be punchy with this. So I've got advocate, understand, and raise. So for advocating, I think that's quite obvious. We want to make sure that we as a network are advocating for everybody across the north, so be that outside of cities, inside of cities, musicians, managers, anybody. So we want to really make sure that we're advocating for you. We also want to make sure that we understand everybody's wants and needs, so if that's something that you take away from today, I hope it's that you know that we want to hear from you and we want to understand what your needs are so that we can take them away and make sure that we're advocating for you properly. And we really want to raise the profile of Northern artists. That's a huge thing for us. So they sound like long and short-term goals, but ultimately that's what we want to do straight away.
Amazing. Yeah, did you want to add anything? No.
I was just going to add to that as well. I think just sort of adding on to that, Alice, there's also something about sort of complementing each other's work, isn't there? So sort of if, just as an example, you know, artists will come play with me, or folks will come to play with me, and I think, okay, it's not really something we do, it's not something we help you with, but I know Yao can do that, I know Alice can do that, I know Kate can do that, then if me or one of my team knows that, we'll direct accordingly, but it becomes, you know, you're kind of contingent on just one person knowing that. So the intent behind this is that you come into Kate, you come to any of our organisations, you're going to get a consistent response, if that makes sense, yeah?
Where do you want to be in 5 years' time as a collective?
We haven't talked about this yet, have we?
More inward investment, that's definite. More sustainability for our organisations and for artists as well.
I'd love us to be irrelevant because we've done what we need to do. That'll be the ideal, isn't it?
That's a good aim. I like that. So audience. Obviously, you each as organisations have your own communities and cohort that you work with, but coming together, how does that differ, and what does that mean for people? Does anyone want to take that one? Does it mean you can reach more people? Does it mean you can reach different
That's
people?
definitely
Yeah.
part of it. I mean, I think we've had sort of quite long-running partnerships with all different with different organisations around the north, and sort of consider our work to be, you know, rooted in the north for the north. But I think, you know, the connection that we might have as a Manchester-based organisation with an artist who's in Newcastle is really different to the sort of relationship that Generator has with that artist. So I think it's looking at how we can support different artists and independents sort of as individual organisations, but again I think it's about sort of the different tiers and levels of support that we can offer collaboratively, and like you can't sort of beat local knowledge and understanding how, you know, even though we're all cities in the same region, the sort of look and feel of music in those cities is really different.
Can I just use, I'm just going to illustrate this, two things quickly. There's an artist in Liverpool who told me about this event from you. So an artist in Liverpool that I'm very close to was invited to this event in Leeds by Alice from a Newcastle organisation. So that shows how that information,
Yeah.
it can move around faster, opportunities. And then my organisation and Generator kind of problem solved the issue that we were struggling with in Liverpool for a while, but because of Generator's resource and positioning, I won't say anymore because I don't know if legally I'm allowed to go into name companies and stuff, but you know, here we are. So they have a certain set of relationships, industry relationships, and we have, within Liverpool, we had some funding, investment funding, to support activity as part of a citywide, city region strategy. So instead of us trying to work that problem out within the city, you know, myself and Mick had a conversation and we went, okay, well, these organisations, doesn't matter the fact that, you know, it's in Newcastle, we could actually design something that would work, which then ties in London. So you've got these like 3 points, and you know, there's employment that's going to come out of it, there's training that's going to come out of it, there's artists who are going to be able to release music and get the support, the adequate support they deserve. That's what I believe these things, and we actually worked it out outside the meeting in Leeds. Do you know what I mean? So that's the real way things like this can work. It's just like, oh, I've got this problem, okay, I've got this thing, okay, well, why don't we just share resource and do something together?
Yeah.
I just thought that was a way to just illustrate it happening in real.
I love what an organic kind of process this is.
You were just winging it, don't you?
No! Very professional. When can people expect to see more about this? Like, are you gonna, what's the manifestation look like? Who wants to cover that?
I think this is a good question to get us thinking quick, isn't it?
Yes, answer me now.
We're going to, I think we're sort of really now entering a bit of a period of consultation to help shape what the next steps are for us. And we're going to hopefully connect into a number of different events around the region where we can have similar sort of conversations and hopefully meet people in and around the conferences to help with that work. We're going down to the Great Escape as a sort of consortium partners and hopefully do some networking and showcasing of artists down there. And again, looking to see how we can do that more around the country and then internationally, I think.
Internationally as well.
Just throwing that in, is that all right with everyone? Yeah.
That's very exciting. I think, yeah, how would people get involved if they aren't already involved or aren't already aware of a local kind of artist development organisation?
I think the best thing to do is probably to get in touch with one of the groups that's membership. Is it worth us mentioning the other partners? I think it's worth shouting them out. And like Kate said, this is not intended to be a closed group, and I think that's really important. We really want to welcome people. I'm just looking at folks I know around the room. So there's any of us, for starters, I can see Sinead up there. So anyone in and around Bradford, speak to Sinead. Is anyone else I'm missing? I don't want to miss them now. Help, folks, help. So who else? I mean, speak to us. Speak to Frank Wilkes if you're in Sheffield or South Yorkshire. Stu Baxter if you're in Hull.
Higher Rhythm.
Yeah, High Rhythm if you're in Doncaster.
Got also Kev from
Kevin.
Kev.
Manus
Yeah.
from Liverpool.
Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, Whiskers, of course, here in Leeds on me. Yeah, I mean, but also, I believe that I'm winging this a bit. Hasn't Whiskers put a QR code on his website that people can get more information about as well? So there is you can sign up to a mailing list, but the important thing is, just reach out to one of us. Am I missing anything?
Well, this is why I didn't risk doing it.
You should, it's just worth saying.
Jazz North.
Jazz North, and also the Glass House, right?
Yeah, the
In
Glass House.
Gateshead.
Yeah. So
There we go.
That's why we didn't want to listen, because we probably upset somebody by missing them out.
No, we're all good people, we don't get upset.
No.
But ultimately,
No egos up north, exactly.
ultimately, just please reach out to any of us that you know within your region of the north, and we'll make sure to signpost you even if we're not immediate, and make sure you get the help that's eligible to you.
Yeah, but I mean, we haven't really spoken, as this is very obvious, about how we're going to launch this. As Kate said, probably the first real manifestation is going to be at the Great Escape. We haven't worked out what that means, what that looks like yet. So there will be a more obvious way to get involved. If that sounds a bit sort of nefarious right now, but it will get clearer. And like Yao said, this is not meant to be a closed shop. This is it really annoys me when you come to these events and it looks like the only people that control the 5 people in the panel here, and that's not the way any of us want this to be.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. Amazing. Do we have, at this point, any questions from the floor?
there should be lots of questions.
Yeah. Lady with the box.
Sound, yeah, right. Catchbox, good branding, like it. Yeah, so talent development. Where does that cross over
Why did
with?
the lights change?
I know, because of the voice, because of the catchbox, mate.
No, I'm just saying. I just thought it was. You said it.
It's like Nintendo Cube, built all the suspense. No, just yeah. With it being like talent development, how does that like lean into if an artist has a manager? Because it sounds like a lot of what you're saying could cover that, but I'm guessing that you wouldn't manage artists. So then do you have like almost like a network of, if it's somebody who is releasing on the ones, is it like something that you would have an encyclopedia of contacts that you think, actually, I could point them in the right direction? Just trying to see where the blurred line is between talent development and management.
I think, in terms of talent development broadly, I don't think it should be limited to people who haven't got any support. Because I think there's artists who've been going platinum who still need their talent developed and stuff like that. So I don't think that would limit it. But I do think we did have a discussion in one of the groups about, like, should we have a resource whereby if somebody's looking to try to find out who are the people, who are the contacts with the organisations, there's almost like a list. And obviously the challenge that comes with that, this is me just thinking out loud, is like, you know, if you go on our thing and see such and such a manager and then you work with that manager and it doesn't work out right, obviously we can't be in a situation where we like veto that, do you know what I mean? But I think we have got a responsibility to connect and help share the network thing, and that might be more about events and stuff like that. But it's a valid question.
The QR
Definitely.
code is the Northern Development, so it's got a list
Okay.
on
QR code. So, also, just
Does that make sense? No? Okay.
No.
So
I'm-
so what I'm saying, talent development, I don't think is limited if someone's got a manager. I think anyone should be able to access support. So I think about one of my clients is Parents Foundation, so we do like some power up and stuff like that and support talent. It doesn't matter if you've got a manager, you can still access that support. And same with definitely the organisations and projects I work on. So that's that. But I was just saying, as a side, if people are looking for, like, you know, I need a promoter, I need a manager, I need this, I think that this alliance should do a good job of showing who's around, because I think a lot of times people just don't know there's management companies or promoters or whatever in their own city or region or whatever, and I think that would be a useful tool. Now, does that answer your question a bit better?
I've got a little add-on.
Please do.
Just from what I thought you were asking as well, is potentially an example for me of what some of us, all of us do is, so Generator's got a showcase down on the Great Escape, and on that lineup that we're taking down, chosen by the Great Escape, are people who have management and people who don't. So we're not limited to only help those that don't have management yet. That's what I thought you might have been asking about, that blurred line
I
between.
think it's more everything that you're saying sounds really excellent. It almost sounds like you'd be a manager with what you were giving, but I'm guessing.
Oh, we definitely don't want to be in that position.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
doing a lot
So
of
we're not going to be like.
you wouldn't be the go-to.
Yeah.
I definitely believe we're not going to be a label. We're not going to be a producer of events. We're not going to be a promoter. We're not going to. That won't be the focus.
Part play with the artist, then that's what I'm trying to like.
I'm just thinking of like an example with a collaboration that we've worked with. I think everyone in the network in some way, but we might like commission an artist to create a new piece of music as part of the alliance or something, and that might be an artist who's got a very particular strand of work and career that they are developing with a manager, but they might have an interest, for example, in getting involved in writing film music or something like that. So they might look for opportunities that will help grow their career in different ways outside of like perhaps a sort of regular sort of trajectory. So I think there's ways that we might dip in there as well in relation to sort of opening up different collaborations with artists, creating work in new and different ways, and things that sort of, as Alice mentioned earlier, like thinking about that broader portfolio of career for artists as well. So I think there's lots of different things, isn't there? I think it's about creating awareness of what the different opportunities and initiatives are, hopefully helping to increase access to them, thinking about those connections outside the region that we might be able to sort of boost a little bit, and then thinking about the broad range of sort of development activities, what that means and looks and feels like across the different organisations, and opening the routes to that as well.
I also think there's a responsibility that we don't take away from management. You know, like we're trying to uplift everyone and the scenes and the, you know what I mean? So I think if we went in, well, we're going to make this management company that sits across 6-7 cities or whatever, I think that would probably be unfair and not where we're probably best suited to support, you know what I mean?
Can I add one more thing to that? just because my background's artist management, spent 10 years developing talent. But I think what you guys do, because can be so bespoke and everyone's on a different journey of development, so you can be fulfilling some of those roles potentially that an artist manager might do, because an artist manager kind of has to wear lots of hats, right? And you could be doing the musical and audio development of an artist, or the visual development of an artist, or their business capabilities, developing those kind of skills. But that's where I suppose if an artist or a music creator doesn't have a manager, you can lean into each of these guys' kind of areas of expertise, if that makes sense, or at least they signpost elsewhere, or it's the collaboration and kind of connection element, if that makes sense. Have we all? Oh no.
No, I was going to add one more thing, I think,
Yeah.
and if I can explain this probably what I'm trying to say. There's a lot of situations in music, aren't there, where there are either gatekeepers or there are limitations. I'm just thinking we've all got different funders, and we do have limitations as much as we'd like not to. And a good example, and I'm not being critical because I love them as an organisation, is Youth Music tends to fund people up to the age of 26. And we've had some quite heartbreaking conversations where people have come to us and they've been 27, 28, especially during the pandemic, and we've had to say, look, I'm really sorry on this programme, I can't support you. And this is about trying to, there are times when unfortunately we just have to say, I'm really sorry, I can't help you with this. But if I know one of these guys have got something that I can plumb them into, it's just a nice way to take away those barriers. So we're not here to say, no, you're too old, you're the wrong gender, you're in the wrong part of the country. We're trying to,
You will if they're in the south.
Yeah, if you're in the south, sorry, you can do one.
No, leave your home and your family and friends and move on.
I've got more to add.
Go on.
Just one of the other benefits that I really see from this network is, again, I kind of go back to funding and having to advocate to our local authorities so much more than we've ever had to before because of other public funding, arts funding dissipating. And there's a lot that we've been sharing information-wise between ourselves about how our programmes have gone down with local authority, so politicians, and how we advocate for what we're doing in the arts within local government is really, really important, because they start to see investment and they start to see opportunities and they start to see the arts and culture in a different way, which is something that I really feel for Birmingham at the moment, and it's something that I really hope that Newcastle is never in that position, because we really need the politicians, I think this is a mad thing to say, to understand the importance of arts and culture. So I know that that's something we're doing with a lot of passion in Newcastle, and I know that Whiskers as well is doing a lot, and it has worked a lot with Yorkshire politicians, and I'm sure all of us are really working hard to ensure that we're raising the profile of arts and culture and making it a really important sector.
And sorry, Alice, I was going to answer that as well. I don't really know the detail. We touched on this before, Kate, but whilst we're having this conversation, there are some I don't want to sound like a politician, but there are some high-level conversations happening right now. There's a convention to the north in Leeds, and there's Andy Burnham's there, Tracy Braben's there. I'm sorry, I don't remember the what's his name? Nick. Nick Kemp's there. So there are these conversations that are happening at a higher level as well, and it's not necessarily. It's part of this conversation, but in amongst the, things are not the best politically at the moment. I'm pretty sure everyone in the room would agree. But there is some real things to be positive about, I think, and we don't know what that means, but it just feels really quite good right now.
Thanks, Tony. No. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, gentlemen.
Can you throw it up there?
Oh boy.
Is this so full?
It's a team effort.
Hello. Hey, hello. My name is Raphael, and this is a question, I suppose, kind of directed to Tony, but the whole panel can answer, kind of thing. So for musicians at the start of their career who maybe are from an underrepresented kind of minority, or maybe from marginalised communities, kind of thing. You guys touched on it briefly at the start, and whilst it's great that there's more kind of development towards kind of making things inclusive, it still sometimes feel that there's a bit of a gap in terms of the way that it's kind of like positioned and framed, these kind of like funding programs. For example, like as a person who is of mixed identity, and through others who I'm currently conducting questions for my research, my PhD, who are kind of like interviewing other mixed racial musicians, it feels that it's not as visible. There's not really as like an area for mixed musicians to feel that they can like, I suppose, express themselves kind of thing. It feels maybe that they have to position one part of their identity to try and get some funding, which is disingenuous to how they view themselves. So I was just wondering, through all the people here, what kind of actions or moves are you making to kind of foster racially mixed identity and kind of make that kind of like space and, kind of make that space more visible?
I think some of what you said is part of my agenda in with this group, and I think I made that clear, didn't I, in the first couple of meetings. It's like, because I think there is nuance around identity that needs to be looked at, and again, I think there's massive challenges. I'd say more outside of London, but let me go there and say in certain aspects. So I think things like this alliance will be able to address some of that nuance that I don't believe has been addressed before, because a lot of stuff is centralised, and because of that you don't get ears on those things and you don't get to react. Initiative that I'm a part of, and a man here, Graft, he was on just a year ago, called Power Up, and we talk about it as being like the single biggest investment in black music in terms of like grants and actual development of individuals. And every year we support 20 black music creators and 20 industry professionals, black industry professionals who are hitting glass ceilings, any genre, any part of the UK, etc., etc., etc. And we were quite clear when we say black what that meant, to acknowledge that it could be, I identify as black, or I have black heritage. And we felt that opened up a door to be able to say, look, we know that this isn't one way all the time. And I think, Graf, you tell me, it's like, I think that's broadened the net and opened up, and we've had some really interesting conversations that are around things like this over the past 3 years, do you know what I mean? So I'm keen to take some of the good practice from that programme and feed it into this group, into some of the work that is getting done by wonderful organisations on the ground. Because I think there's a will, but sometimes people need to show people the way, if you get what I'm saying.
Yes.
And that's probably the challenge, but the will's there, do you mean, to get it right? And listen to people like yourself explain, how you feel you may be restricted by some of these programs.
Yeah, I mean, it's like from other, because I'm in the middle of my field work, so I'm interviewing like racially mixed musicians as well, and it feels like it's not really anything specifically for people who are mixed identity. It's great there's stuff for black musicians and opening it up. Mixed identity is such a fluid thing, do you know what I mean? And so it's more of a case of understanding the differences that create that community kind of thing. Obviously, I know it feels like it's very tentative steps, and I'm not criticising you guys at all. I know what you guys are doing is great, but it feels like there could be more steps in that direction. Do you know what I mean? And it's great to see. Again, this is not me criticising. I'm happy to see that there is growth, but
when you finish your piece of work,
yeah,
please let us know what your recommendations are, because maybe we can actually support that and take that into consideration.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, as we kind of touched on, it's an organic process, and I think, you guys are going to be constantly evolving, likely, so taking things on board would be key.
Yeah, I was just going to really add similarly to Yao. I think when you identify something like you have there in terms of gaps, that's a really sort of important step in sort of exploring how to open that up and how to do something about it. And we worked in a similar way with around gender equity about 8 years ago with an initiative that had just come up from sort of anecdotal observations around representation in the work that we were doing. And I think once you sort of start to identify where those gaps are, it really opens up a lot of scope for conversations and investments to try and redress that imbalance. And there's a number of, I think, like inequalities around protected characteristics, but I think then the way there's a whole load of intersecting inequalities as well, which I think need further examination. And I think as a partnership, we're really committed to looking at that. And I think you're absolutely dead right that there are major gaps in terms of sort of mixed heritage and mixed identity. And I think it'd be great, as Yao said, to hear more about what you're uncovering and look at what, look at ways in which we can take affirmative action to fill some of those gaps and, move things forward a bit.
Thanks, Kate. Thank you. Any other questions?
Pass the box.
Pass the box.
Hello, I'm Ed. I work in various ways in Leeds Music. Some of you know me, some of you don't. Well done if you don't know me, because I'm horrible. But I'm really interested to know, I was a terrible comedian. So I'd be really interested to know, how do you stop, because alliance is good, and actually you made a really good point about being nuanced, and I think, the kind of having nuanced responses. How do you stop this organisation becoming kind of because I've seen organisations do it, they join together and then they become this kind of block where they become a funding hoover, so they're hoovering up lots of pots of funding, which obviously stops individual artists and even other practices like theatre companies, and so you become actually a block on trying to achieve. And how do you stop just becoming this kind of homogenised, centralised, because you were talking about being decentralised allows you to be nuanced. How do you stop becoming a kind of centralised unit that ends up just being a wall? Does that make sense?
I'm just going to use a quick example. In Liverpool, we set up the Liverpool City Region Music Board about 5 years ago. And we made it clear from the beginning that even though there's loads of organisations that were like doing great work, so there's 18 of us to begin with, it would not become a producer, it would not become a label, it would not become and it would not apply for funding on its behalf. If any funding did come towards the group, it would be to put on events that would serve the sector. So one of the first things we did do was, during the pandemic, we got, I don't want to get in trouble, but I'm going to say £125,000 towards supporting artists and venues through that space, and also supported venues applying for money. I think the Arts Council had a lot of the recovery money there. So we realised we were like a conduit to fund it, and if anything, we believe our job was to help bring more attention to what was going on, articulate it to DCMS, government, Arts Council, whatever, what was going on, to act as a way to kind of amplify and advocate. Do you know what I mean? And I think that was our first thing, wasn't it? It was like, I think our role is more about that than it is going, okay, let's apply for like £150,000 funding and we'll do something for ourselves or our organisations. We're actually representative of the North. And, again, going to the Liverpool City Region Music Board, every quarter we do consultation events where we go out. We talked about similar thing with the Alliance, going and do these events where people tell us what they need and where they are and what are the major things, and it's our job to kind of formulate that and feed that where it needs to go. And again, one of the biggest things I think the Liverpool City Region Music Board done was to do the donkey work to get strategic investment funding, which was £2 million, which is to give out to organisations and individuals in the Liverpool City region. So £2 million, like, without the board that wouldn't exist. And I think we could probably look at how we're part of having those conversations. Do you know what I mean? Because sometimes more money will be procured by having a body that it represents a wider group than everyone individually going for smaller amounts. Do you know what I mean? So I hope that answers the question, but I'm just trying to use that as an illustration of how a group can avoid becoming a wall of funding on just sucking stuff away from everyone else.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the intention. I don't think anybody here wants
Absolutely
to
not
do
the
that.
intent. I think there's something you touched on as well. You know, you said about ego as well, Ed. Answering that question, this is not about one individual who's kind of, you know, let's get everyone together and let's just hoover up as much as we can. And we haven't. I mean, it's not February takes. We haven't really talked about it in any detail, but we've got to determine a good governance model for this.
I suppose that's what I mean. It's not about, and you know, I certainly don't want to sound like I'm accusing you guys of that. It's more that how do you stop that happening? Because we have seen it happen, right?
We're the poor one. It's only Mick who's got money, the guy with the Stone Island and stuff.
I'll see you later.
No, but I think there needs to be a governance model that stops that happening,
Yeah.
Ed.
Yeah.
It's not like about, you know, creating the G7 and like, you know, the people that are in the seats are going to pull up the ladder from everybody else. That's not what it's about.
But I suppose it is just, I've seen those kind of like, you see the kind of organisations, and they never mean to, but then they end up becoming massive and really powerful.
No, I agree with you. I hate
Yeah.
them organisations. I
Yeah.
hate those groups. So I hear you.
Factual, just get together and take it down.
Well, we're not gonna be one of them.
You all heard that, right?
Call
Thanks
us
very
out,
much.
actually. If we
No, exactly. And I think we'll have a level of responsibility to, you know, we can't do what everybody, you know, I want this, I want that, do that for me. But I think I think we're very clear that we want to we've done enough and we've got enough skin in the game to go, look, we know what's going on. We've got all these organisations. We work on the ground. We're getting all this feedback every day. We know where the struggles are. We're kind of coming together, so it's a strategic way forward for everywhere we work, which kind of covers the whole of the north. So that's our focus. Do you know what I mean? But I think the whole point we want to be in a position where people can come and speak to us and, you know, and challenge us and, oh, this is happening here in this sector. Like, what can you guys do, or what are you guys doing?
Yeah, again, it sort of just comes back to the word advocate for me, because we're very lucky to be in the positions that we're in the organisations that we're working for. We're incredibly lucky. So what we want to do is make sure that we are all communicating, because we don't want to work in silo. We want each of the regions to be really, really strong and well connected. It comes back to, I think, the first question and the first thing we were saying is that it's not just about connecting us all up in the north, but it is also about connecting us with southern cities and making sure that it's just that free flow of information, funding, artists, opportunities, industry opportunities. So investment, like it's really about opening those doors, not becoming another gatekeeper and another organisation that you have to try and get in with in order to reach a goal that you want to. The purpose here is about sharing information and ensuring that the opportunities are available to everyone because of the information that has been shared, so that we're not learning the same mistakes or the same good advantages that you've learned about in the last year. We're sharing that information to stop the next person having to go through that.
Excellent answers.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for your question.
How are we doing for time? Are we all right?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Oh, one more question. Right at the back. How's the box? Chocolate box.
Hello. Oh, this is weird. Hi, I'm Shira. I work in events and I'm a musician. I suppose, kind of leading on to that, you have mentioned like each of the organisations have been involved in specific projects. Like you mentioned the Great Escape Festival. I know you also with music have been involved with Liverpool International Festival. Is there anything else that you want to list that any artists in the room can sort of get involved with or look at in the future?
Who'd like to say that?
Yeah, are you asking what we're going to be, or what just as artists you can?
Is there anything that we can look to within your organisations to help us?
Yeah. So thank you very much for saying yeah. So Generator we've got a conference and a one-day showcase as well that happens called Generator Live. That's in October. We're actually partnering with BBC Introducing Live as they make their way around the UK. So that's another fantastic opportunity to come and hopefully come to another city and check out what we're doing up there, and check out the musicians that are working in our region. And that will be another time when we'll probably come together and, hey, you should all be there because you'll get the next update, I'm sure. But other than that, definitely keep an eye on all of our socials to find out what comes from the Great Escape when we're doing the Northern Partners Network event there as well.
Thanks, Alice. Any final words, guys?
I just wanted to say like a really massive thank you for all those questions, because I think they've all been like really thought-provoking for us, and we're sort of thinking on our feet a little bit to answer them, but I think they're all questions we need to just take back into our group meeting and like come back to. Actually, they're all good sort of points of focus, and they're all good points of accountability as well, so just wanted to say thank you for those, really.
Amazing.
I was going to just say something really
Yeah.
flippant. I wonder if anyone could think of a better name than Northern Partners Network. We'd be open to hear it, because it's not the catchiest, but it kind of does what it says in the tin, doesn't it?
Northern know-how.
That was Northern Know-How for anyone that didn't hear.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, wonderful panellists. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
audience.
Sarah.
We're going to have a short break now, and then we'll be back at 3:30 for a discussion about investment in the North.
Mark.